Welcome to the People's Revolution podcast. This is the space where we share stories from activists around the world. We hope that these stories inspire you to act locally as we share globally. Hi, and welcome to Season 3 of the podcast. I cannot believe we're here. It is crazy to think about. I wanted to start by saying thank you to every person that's watched, listened, and shared, subscribed. You've all really encouraged me to continue on and do a Season 3. So thank you so much from the bottom of my awkward heart. Thank you. My podcast was meant to share stories of artists and activists from around the world to encourage other artists and activists to continue with their work, because I know sometimes it can get scary and lonely. So I am grateful for the opportunity to continue to do that. This episode is a little bit different. Instead of sharing someone's story, we're going to be talking about the story of Alberta and what it's been like to live here. We are not really going to be pointing the finger or naming names. But there is some news on people that has just been in the news consistently. So that's going to be in here. But if you're here for Nazi names, we're not doing that. But the story of Alberta is pretty heavy, and it was hard to film and edit, but I did it. So thank you for bearing with me. I know this is coming out a month late. But it was just a lot. It was so much. This episode is going to be 4 parts, just because of how much we ended up going through. What was meant to be an hour and a half turned into about 2 hours.
I actually meant 4 hours.
And so because of that, there's going to be a 4-part series. Each episode is going to be split between history and current, and so I hope it kind of gives a balanced overview of what the fuck's been happening here. This episode in particular, we're going to talk about what it's been like to live here a little bit, some recent history, and one of the torch marches. And in preceding episodes, we're going to have videos like this at the beginning, just to kind of share with you what is in each one before we start. So yeah, I just wanted to again say thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for listening and watching and sharing and all those things. And without further ado, the show. Welcome to the People's Revolution podcast. We're going to start today, as always, with a land acknowledgement. A recognition that we are on stolen land is not enough when the genocide we call history still continues today and is reinforced by the daily lives of those unaware. Residential schools only closed their last doors in 1997, but the mentality of the residential schools lives on. White people, imagine living in a place that not only normalizes genocide, but actively covers it up. We don't live here because a peaceful treaty was signed. We live here because white people before us brutally pushed their way in. This includes our current government, RCMP, and church, and we need to acknowledge this and the harmful systems it brought with it before we can even attempt to create reconciliation. It is a privilege to not know that you're living in such a way that makes a genocidal reality seem like regular everyday life. I would still like to recognize that the stolen land I'm speaking from is rightfully the traditional territories of the Blackfoot Nations and forced to be the home of Treaty 7. These nations are Siksika, Kainai, and Piikani. In these spaces, the Siksika people lived and practiced their oral traditions as far back as existence goes. Treaty 7 was signed on September 22, 1877 in a brutally unethical way. This treaty was not upheld. Treaty 7 includes the Tsuut'ina Nation, the Stoney Nakoda Nations, and the Métis Nations of Region 3. So, this space known as Calgary is actually rightfully known as Mohkinstsis. Thank you. Today we have a really important episode. I think it's essential as fuck. The world saw the convoy go to Ottawa in 2022, and we want to share what it was like in Alberta leading up to this. Alberta has been experiencing a violent reflection of Trump's America. Far-right and religious extremists have connected with a new wave of conspiracy theorists, QAnon, and Trump supporters. This has created a threatening and violent space to exist for many people. This also isn't new. And Alberta has basically been a fuckfest for a long time. So holy shit, do we have a lot of ground to cover. The freedom movement of Alberta has a lengthy and gross history. And this is just their most recent claim to moral stance. It has been happening for a long time. It flares up and dies down. This is their biggest following, which is highly problematic, and that they've ever had. But the storyline has been consistent and the same. Same story, same or similar characters, and I don't really want to get caught up in the who's who, but rather in the what's what. The shit rhetoric has been consistently disguised as patriotism, nationalism, or freedom, each movement sucking in a new round of people each time. The way they portray can be easily seen through by looking at the research. They basically just post all their shit. There's a lot of news articles on it, but it's a lot to go through, so we did it for you. I'm going to try and reference everything at the bottom. To be honest, the reference list is so big, I don't know if it's going to fit in the description, but I'm going to give it a go. And so Alberta has just had so many different levels of fucked up, what the fuck is going on, and just, I don't know how to explain it, so I'm just going to show you. So we present the long, gross history of Alberta. And to help do that, we have a multitude of voices to help give a more rounded perspective. We have Tigra-Lee Campbell and Brad Gallamore of the LVE Foundation, who have done a ton of important and impactful work to counter the issues Alberta has been facing in the past few years with protesting and education. We have Tiera Williams of A Fight for Equity, who has hosted the largest Black Lives Matter rally Alberta has ever seen, and has participated and co-organized countless other important events, both in person and online, as well as, hopefully, Terry Helm from the Hate Fucking Nazis Foundation. I'm just kidding. But Terry has also done a lot to really counter the Nazis in Alberta, so hopefully he makes it. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. Just to start off, I'd like to hear from each of you and just hear a little bit about what it's been like living in Alberta, especially over the last 2 to 3 years, but just in general, starting with Tigra.
Hey. It's been really interesting living in Alberta for the last couple of years. It's a whole different dynamic living in rural Alberta than it is in some of the bigger urban centers. And it has been, I don't know, like a whirlwind of emotions. I've lost a lot of friends and family over the last couple of years, just because of the polarizing issues that, we've been seeing regarding just COVID, masks, anti-vaxxers, and the accelerationism that's happened. I have had quite a few friends just sucked into that whole narrative, and I think that the hardest thing to deal with was the blatant racism and xenophobia, but also the dissipation of trust that I've had between friends and family. That was really, really hard to navigate as well. And just the amount of buzzwords and trigger words, and there's certain words that I won't even use in my own vocabulary anymore, just because they bring up just really intense feelings of negativity and anger. that it makes it hard to even hear those words anymore. Here in Lloyd, we still have freedom protests every weekend here. And there's one person in particular that leads these that used to be one of my really, really good friends. And to just see him in that capacity is just weird, you know, like you see people and you're like, you're chill. I feel like you're down for the cause. And you see them a part of this and it's just like, whoa, like you went to the whole other end of the spectrum that I was not anticipating. And also to see the amount of political leaders and you know, ex-military people that are also heavily involved in this is somewhat terrifying. So it's, yeah, I mean, racism is something that as a racialized woman that I've had to experience my whole life navigating that. And the ebb of and flow of it, we're kind of in the ebb of it right now. And so it is really intense. To see the polarization is really intense. And yeah, it's just been really interesting. I'm really trying to not shelter my kids, but just make them super aware of what is happening as well, just to, you know, so they are protected when they go out into the world.
Mm-hmm. Tiera, I'm gonna pass this question off to you. What has it been like living in Alberta for the past few years, or just your experience in general? Oh, but you're muted. You're muted.
Yeah, no, it's been a crazy roller coaster of a ride, I'd say, especially since 2020 till now. I mean, I've experienced racism my whole life, but once you start to use your voice and step up and kind of go into the public eye and kind of fight against that whole system, a lot more things come out, a lot more people come after you. Like Tigra said, you lose a lot of friends and family. I've lost a lot of family. One of the freedom rallies, the Torch March, I was on one side and a family member who I've known since I was a baby was on the other side. And it was like a really profound moment for me seeing that, like, wow. And this woman has a Black child, and it's just like, how could you get so corrupted into thinking that it's just for freedom when these are the people you're surrounding yourself with? Kevin J. Johnston and all those friendly guys. So yeah, that's been crazy. And then just, it's hard not to go in public after seeing the way everything is and not feeling like a target is on your back. People recognize you. Other people are violent. So like, it's kind of hard not to look at other white people and think like, oh, are these the good white people, or are these the people who are going to target me or come after me type thing? Because I've had people follow us. I've had people threaten us. It's just been a lot to go through. And after my baby's picture was taken and put into like a child pornography scene from my Facebook, I had to just like back up a bit because it got a little too close to home for me. That was like a devastating thing to see and get sent, just because you're speaking up for people such as yourself and other racialized people who are experiencing brutality and racism and just segregation from other people. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Wow. I'm sorry that happened. I did not know. That's fucked up. It's
Really fucked up.
I don't even know what to say.
No, it was bad. It was like, what is wrong with these people? And like, they're sending it to my family members with my little baby girl's face, like photoshopped into a sex scene. I'm just like, what the
I'm gonna cry. Like, what the fuck?
It literally though.
I bawled
it's
for
fucking
days.
crazy. I'm so sorry that happened to you and to her. Like,
it was horrible.
As soon as I saw her face, like, are you serious right now? Like, my whole heart.
I was like, okay, I need to like lock down everything and I just need to stop. So I haven't been doing, this is the first time I've done something in quite a while. So
I'm very grateful that you are here, and I am so fucking sorry that that happened.
thank you.
And I hope that bad things happen to the people that did that.
I know.
Very bad things. Damn. Brad, I'm gonna ask you the same question. I'm still like shaken from that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
No,
that's
it's good. It's good for people to know how fucked up it is here. But
It is, it's bad.
and thank you for your vulnerability, but like, holy fuck.
Yeah, it got scary for a minute. Like I thought it was scary, but then when they start targeting your kids, it's a whole other ball game.
Yeah, so if you're wondering what it's like to live in Alberta in the last 3 years, that. Yeah, so like, and because I moved to rural Alberta in 2019, and it's so far the best and worst thing that ever happened to me. And also, even when it comes to all this and everything I do, like I am extremely privileged, right? I don't face those racist attacks, obviously, although sometimes I have, and it hasn't made any sense whatsoever. But anyways, legitimately, like I'm extremely privileged, and especially being close to the 3 amazing women in this chat right now, like I've been extremely privileged and also extremely unfortunate to witness firsthand what they do go through, and that's just on the occasions that I'm there. This happens to them regularly every day, probably afraid to check their Facebook message requests. And so like I said, extremely privileged to get to work with y'all, but also extremely unfortunate that sometimes I do witness what happens to you. And that's the small scale of it, which is terrifying to me, is that if you're wondering what it's like to be in Alberta, ask a Black woman.
The circumstances that created a safe place for not only the convoy to grow and thrive, but also for all these freedom rallies and the history of freedom rallies to thrive is that like Alberta has always, since the moment it became Alberta, been a safe place for this kind of fucked up shit. Like 150 years ago to today, it's just been like a breeding ground for, I don't know if that's the right word, but like it's just like festered. And it's always been something. Like Alberta has been a comfortable home for racists, a voice for the freedom rhetoric, and they want to be free from, let me be clear, the LGBT community, Muslims, anti-fascists, immigrants, Black Lives Matter. Like these are the things that they want freedom from, and they want freedom to criticize all these groups, or else they are being punished for being politically incorrect. And I would actually like to get into that now. I guess I'm gonna give a history of Alberta before 2020, before we kind of talk about 2020. So in 2019, there was a report that came out from the Organization for the Prevention of Violence. And it was a community-led and expert-led non-government organization developed to understand and prevent hate-motivated violence. The whole report is 190 pages long. I will link it at the bottom. This is just an Edmonton Journal summary, and it's not an entire summary. It's just like it would just be too long. So they listed a bunch of different groups that are prevalent in Alberta. They state that Alberta is home to a disproportionate number of extremist movements. And so the first one we want to talk about is anti-authority extremists, and that's just what they called them. These are like the yellow vesters. So they call themselves free men on the land, who broadly assert that the government is illegitimate, duh, they just got there and they took it real far. But that's okay. The report from 2019 estimates that there was about 150 to 250 free men on the land in Alberta. That obviously grew in 2020, but just that's the number given in this report. Most of them came to this ideology after a negative interaction with the legal system, and they had an upswing in death threats against politicians following the 2015 elections of Rachel Notley and Justin Trudeau. Does that sound familiar? Yes, but we'll get there. The next one is Patriot and Milita groups. Patriot and Milita groups are primarily motivated by xenophobia and anti-government views, the report said, adding that many members share anti-Islamic sentiments. Some engage in survivalist activities like prepping and firearm training. So do the KKK. We'll get there. Some take part in maybe not real, possibly grifty charity activities, as well as street patrols that the report says primarily target visible minorities, newcomers, and refugee communities, Muslim people in particular. And we saw this in the Worldwide Coalition Against Islam. They weren't worldwide. They were Albertan, and we will get to that. While there are reports of militant groups taking part in military-style training in rural Alberta, this report says that those claims remain unsustained to this day. We actually have a video of a CBC interviewing Klan members in the 70s or 80s, and they talk about setting up these camps, so we can get to that later too. Examples of these groups include the Three Percenters, the Soldiers of Odin, the Sons of Odin, the Canadian Infidels, the Clan True North Patriots, and the Northern Guard. Many formed or had good recruitment years in 2015, according to this research, again driven by the election of the provincial NDP and the federal Liberals, and of course the economic downturn, which is a trend. Every time there's an economic downturn or a problem like that, extremist groups pop up and prey on people's vulnerabilities. The report says that media coverage has played a role in the group's recruitment. So I know talking about this kind of stuff is a little bit sensitive. I'm going to try my best not to point anybody in the direction of these groups, but I feel like if you've made it this far, you're not down for that. If you are, please consider changing your mind. Thank you. The report says that the rise of the Yellow Vest movement has re-energized areas of activism and engaged in a broader set of individuals, some of whom now gravitate more towards organized patriot and militant groups. And again, this is in 2019, so we'll speak about the Yellow Vest movement quite soon, but it also, they have been a big part of the freedom rallies and the convoys, and they still wear their dorky little vests.
I just wanted to add that this is not the same as the Yellow Vesters in France. Respect to them, not making fun of their vests.
So the last group that is of importance that this report talks about is white supremacists and associated ideologies. So white supremacy has a long history in Alberta. In 1930s, the Ku Klux Klan had 50 chapters in Alberta with an estimated 7,000 to 8,000 members. In 1988, in Calgary, for example, 2 young KKK members were convicted of a plot to blow up a Jewish community center in Calgary. At that period, the KKK numbers were on record to be 100, but I'm sure there was more than that because they're a registered society up until in the 2000s here. Brad, you're muted. Whatever you just said is muted.
Sorry, yeah, it's they were registered in Alberta right up to the 2000s. But fun fact, so the city that Tigra lives in, the person who discovered it was considered too racist by the KKK. Yeah, take that home.
Gross. The primary active groups in 2019 in Alberta were Blood and Honor, Combat 18, the Christian Identity Movement. There's always a Christian part to this stuff. A variety of identitarian groups, Blood and Honor being the biggest, having peaked at 60 to 70 members in 2016 and 17. They actually stopped marching. They did a white White Pride Worldwide March until 2012. They got their asses kicked in 2012, and so they stopped marching, but they still were coming out as security for the other rallies that we're going to talk about in like 1 minute. The report also says, and this is super important, that while traditional white power groups are in the decline, more sanitized identitarian and ethno-nationalist movements are attracting new members today. And so that's not just the freedom rallies, that's also the White Lives Matter movement. That's like everything that we're going to see in 2020, but also before 2020. Like, you will see what we're talking about. I'd like to also note that this fucking report put in left-wing extremists, and it was very tiny, and said that violence by left-wing extremists is mainly reactionary in confrontation with right-wing groups, and they're not really a threat to anybody. I don't know why they included that. Like, these are just people that come out and kick Nazi ass, and they're like, these are extremists. It's like, okay, that's fine. This report was also summarized by the CBC, but I'm not going to read two summaries of the same report.
So there is actually a second report from the Organization for the Prevention of Violence called Hate Extremism and Terrorism in Alberta, Canada and Beyond: The Shift from 2019 to 2022. And so that will be linked in the comment section below because it was not included in this podcast. This portion includes a brief history of the KKK in Canada. It was added in after filming was ended, so there is no panel comments. It is quite heavy, so if this is something that you are not wanting to hear right now, please just skip ahead 5 minutes and we will return to the panel right after.
On this property, not clearly visible in old photographs, was a darker part of Edmonton's history. For a time, their presence was strong in Alberta. Somewhere on this site was an office for a newspaper called The Liberator.
The Liberator was the Ku Klux Klan's newspaper that they published from Edmonton in the 1930s. Best I can understand, it was published from about 1931 to about 1933 under the leadership of J.J. Maloney.
Ontario-born Maloney was the Edmonton chapter's imperial wizard. He made his way across Western Canada, recruiting members in Saskatchewan and Alberta.
They were publicly holding meetings where hundreds of people were attending to hear J.J. Maloney, the leader, speak. And one of the venues where they went to was Memorial Hall. These were people who were openly writing to the mayor, and the mayor was writing back and saying, "Yours truly."
In this letter dated July 16, 1932, KKK official Harold Wright seeks permission from then-Mayor Daniel Knott to hold an event in cross-burning on the exhibition grounds. On July 26th, Knott says yes.
It was really disturbing to see such public displays of their power in the 1930s in Edmonton.
And the mayor adds if the fiery cross is burned, it will be in the center enclosure at sufficient distance from the buildings.
The Ku Klux Klan in British Columbia. Its plans for the future include the setting up of training camps and attracting children in school to its ranks. Our reporter Genevieve Westcott interviewed the Klan's organizers, beginning with a Klan member in Vancouver.
Why all the secrecy? Why won't you take off your hood and show me who you are?
Oh, mainly because you have a lot of radicals out there. They get sucked into things very easily. And if, say, some commie came down the street and says, here, I'll give you $20, go over there and do it to that guy there because I've seen his face, they'll do it.
You know, violence, we won this country through violence. We came here, there was another race inhabiting it, and we fought for this. I think that if we don't legally come to a position of power, there's going to be an awful lot of violence.
In Canada, the Invisible Empire is predicting an inevitable race war, and it's actively organizing for the day when its dreams of military power come true. The chief spy for the Klan's secret intelligence agency.
When the time comes, we'll be able to take any action necessary.
What does that include, take any action necessary?
Whatever is called for at the time, whatever the political climate is.
Are we talking about murder, possibly? Are we talking about
Well, no, the Klan
political
does not believe in
assassinations?
violence. We do not use that as a method. That's a last resort of desperate people.
If that's the case, then why is the Klan now engaged in paramilitary training?
Well, it depends on how you define paramilitary training. We have survival camps in Ontario. We hope to expand those to British Columbia. None of them are illegal. We don't have military training it's like the Canadian Army does. And it's only in terms of survival. You know, if you found a loaded weapon, what would you do with it? A lot of people don't know that, and I think they should know that.
By the 1920s, the Klan was alive and well in Canada, with a record 100,000 card-carrying converts. In BC, the Invisible Empire flourished, with 40,000 members. They operated out of an impressive Shaughnessy mansion in Vancouver, which still stands today. Klansmen marched openly in the streets and in church parades. They also sat as elected members in the Victoria Legislature, with new recruits in something called the Klan Youth Corps, a kind of junior league for white racists.
Our idea is that you can be a white man and be proud of your heritage and proud of your culture. We focus out on young people also. I think too many people ignore young people today.
Are you recruiting in schools then in Canada?
Well, certainly we recruit in schools.
How young? How young are you recruiting?
Well, to be a member of the Klan Youth Corps, you've got to be 14.
In the States, it's 10.
Good.
I have one final question for you. I want to know how a young man can be filled with so much fear and so much hatred of people who are different from himself.
I know, I'm white and I'm proud of it. A black man can say black is beautiful, but I say white is wonderful. There's nothing wrong with a black man being proud of his culture or his race or his heritage. And I say there's nothing wrong with a white person being proud of his culture and his race and his heritage. And the only way that we're going to keep that is to make sure the races are separate. And the only way for the Negro and the black man to be proud of his race is as long as he's separate. If we're all amalgamated into one coffee-colored race, there'll be no point in being proud to be black, no point in wearing a turban, no point in being proud of being a Chinese, there'll be no point in being proud of being white.
Our reporter in Vancouver was Genevieve.
So that was obviously really fucked and heavy. Again, I wish we could have had panel comments on it, but also I don't know if I wanted to put some of them through that just for pretty obvious reasons. So we're going to go back to the panel now. If you want to check out more information on this, the links are on the screen and also in the comment section below. So, just scrolling down to the bottom of this giant thing that I researched. So, from what I could find, so from 2008 to 2012 was primarily when the White Pride worldwide and like those marches were happening, Edmonton, Calgary. 2012 to 2016 and 17, they were still around, but at these different freedom movements, helping with security with a bunch of other hate groups. And we're just gonna get into that right the fuck now. We're gonna kind of work our way backwards, and I'm just gonna give you a bunch of examples almost as quickly as possible. Some will spend a little more time, like the first convoy. A lot of people don't know that this was actually the second convoy by the same fucking people. So we're going to spend a little more time talking about the first convoy and about the Worldwide Coalition Against Islam, because that's disgusting. And they did some really gross stuff. But so 2019, for example, there was a rally called Possess the Land. It included, first of all, it was counter-protested, obviously, by the LGBTQ community and just other people. It was a homophobic, transphobic event, and they had members of the Northern Guard and Yellow Vesters, very important Yellow Vesters, as security. It was led by some preacher in Calgary who doesn't even deserve his name being said. And it was attended by about 70 people, and 30 people came out to protest it. This church was opposed to, and this is what they said, homosexuality, gender fluidity, among other things. That's their words. That's what they were protesting. Members of the Northern Guard, a far-right group, as well as Yellow Vesters, showed up and were asked to be there for security reasons. There was people speaking that were self-proclaimed anti-LGBTQ activists. That's
just a fucking homophobe and a transphobe, but however you want to put it. They, of course, sang the national anthem. They always fucking sing the national anthem. They sang Amazing Grace. There was people from the Christian Heritage Party there. It was just disgusting. I don't even know. They were also doing a whole anti-abortion thing too while they were there. However, they said, because their church feeds people every week, that if you are gay, gender fluid, or have had an abortion, they will still feed you, but they're going to preach to you while they do it. They made sure to include that in the news. Anyways,
wow.
Yeah. So who the fuck are the yellow vesters? I have a video that I would like to play because the yellow vesters were, I'll explain what they are, then we can play the video. But like they were counter-protested consistently. Edmonton, Calgary, they were also in like Saskatchewan and like Ontario. They were fucking everywhere. And they were saying that they were like a pro-pipeline group, but then also they were adamantly a they were like, we're not anti-immigration, we're anti-migration. Okay. Okay. We can hear it from the horse's mouth in a second. But I know it hurts. It physically hurts. One article stated that you can see Make America Great Again hats. Another one said you can see Make Canada Great Again hats. The soldiers of Odin were there all the fucking time. The wolves of Odin, the Canadian infidels. Can all be seen in these different news clips. And these different news clips have these pictures that I'm going to put up on the screen that show these people at the rallies. And so in January 2017, as soon as US President Donald Trump put in place a travel ban on people from 7 major Muslim countries, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau delivered a message on Twitter. I don't know why he put it on Twitter, but he did. To those fleeing persecution, terror, and war, Canada welcomes you regardless of your faith. Diversity is our strength. Welcome to Canada. And these people flipped the fuck out. They were like, no, you can't do that. And it just like, it spiraled. So it went from like we want a pipeline to like, there was like a manifesto of like no illegal immigration, no carbon tax. We want the pipelines. We want to stop depending on foreign oil. We want electoral reform. We want freedom of speech. We want freedom of press. They were on the fake news train so hard, and they want sovereignty over immigration policies. But it's interesting because other pro-pipeline groups like Rally for Resources or Canada Action were not having these like hate groups at their events. But the yellow vesters consistently were like, we can't help who comes here. But it's like, bitch, yes you can. Just like, honestly, like if I was at a rally and I wasn't even putting on the rally, I was just attending, and I saw the soldiers of Odin walk up, I'm 100% sure I'd be like, get the fuck out. Like, leave. Like, I'd make a big fucking scene, personally. Okay.
The same trope that they use today, like, we can't control who comes. You know, like, if anyone ever came to one of our rallies and, you know, was carrying a Nazi flag or just saying something super, like, messed up, I would not be like, oh yeah, well, it's okay, we can't control it. No, get the fuck out. Go. You take your hatred somewhere else, but it's not going to fucking be here, because if you're silent, you're complicit. So yeah, it's not surprising that it's the same shit that they've been saying probably since the transatlantic slave trade. We can't help it, you know.
Since the dawn of time. Yeah, it's fucked up. I have a ton more stuff to explain, but instead I'm just gonna play the video here.
I'm watching our Canadian values and morals that are being directed by the new Liberal government. What Justin Trudeau is doing with the Migration Pact is nuts. We're going to become a minority if he does that. We're afraid that we're going to lose our sovereignty. Already immigrants come to this country and they already are trying to impose their culture on us. We are Canadian. If you want to come to Canada,
our concern is the sort of anti-immigrant and racist nature of the protesting in Red Deer. If the point of the protest is just an economic stimulus, then WIC doesn't have a problem with that, obviously, but the rhetoric has gone beyond that. We've seen signs that say Trudeau equals Sharia law. We've seen signs that say Muslim with big crosses through them.
I'm here to protest the immigration compact. I'm not against my immigration, I'm against migration. I'm against people coming here that haven't been vetted and didn't work for it. I mean, I have family that moved here and had to pay to be here and had to pay their dues to be here. So why should those people walk across the border and not pay any of those dues? That's what makes me upset. Carbon tax is just a scam. So that one probably is the most angering. And that's going to affect my children's future.
It was a protest calling out hate, with one group specifically naming the Yellow Vest movement in Edmonton. But the Yellow Vest members I spoke with said they're not about hate, but about unity.
The message is unity and love. You got to respect one another, wherever anybody comes from.
But just like they show up, so do counter-protesters, alternating the podium. This week, the Yellow Vests listen to the other side.
Uninvite these groups, denounce these groups. They shouldn't be welcome in your cause.
Who say they have no issue with the fight for pipelines or jobs, but are concerned about the inclusion of groups like Soldiers of Odin or the Klan.
And there are some people that are racist comments, and we don't accept that whatsoever. So to say that one person makes a racist comment and paint all Canadians to be racist, this is completely wrong.
Comments concerning to one hate crimes expert.
There are folks who feel that their white identity is being chipped away at by immigrants and newcomers. This individual in New Zealand, that was kind of the main motivation he had when you kind of sift through his manifesto. But even when you read through some of the threads online that are of local groups, it's a very similar sentiment, right? We need to keep Canada Canadian, whatever.
We're totally anti-immigrant. No, we're not that. It's literally just we're in support of legal immigration, because if we just let everyone in, then that puts such a big burden on our already stretched welfare system.
While Yellow Vesters say they can't control who comes to their events or police the comment section. Some here disagree.
I find it hilarious that they keep saying they want to keep Canada Canadian, like it's just a white country. What?
Exactly. And they're, like, we don't want people to come and take our lands. Like, don't you hear the hypocrisy in that?
What did your granddaddy's granddaddy do?
Yeah, all you want to say to them is like, yeah, wouldn't it be a shame if someone came, completely imposed their culture, maybe put you on like only small pieces of land that you and the other people that you know and are close to,
Shave your head, bathe you in bleach. Would you enjoy that?
Fucked up? Like, would you don't like that?
Yeah. But then they turn around and go, well, that was in the past. I didn't do that. That was so forgive and forget. It's, like, hey, but don't we celebrate Remembrance Day over here?
But and if it was in the past, why are you worried about it happening to you? It was in the past. You don't have to worry about it. Don't worry. It's in the past.
It's chipping away at our white Canada. How dare they?
Okay. Like, maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
They're so afraid to be the minority.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So
but there's no racism. Why are you so afraid? There's no racism.
Are you saying minorities are treated badly? You're almost there.
It's just this freaking boy or whatever to portray that they're oppressed. Like, I'm oppressed too. Like, what? No.
You were literally marching in a street with no barriers. Tell me how oppressed you are again?
Right?
You literally broke into the Capitol building and weren't shot on sight. Tell me you're oppressed. Tell me.
Exactly. No, it's crazy because when we were at the Torch March, they protected the white side.
Yes.
They faced us, of course, because we were the threat. But you couldn't even go to the bathroom without the cops asking where you're going.
They blocked our
fucking unreal.
exits. Yeah, they blocked our exits.
Yeah.
And but they allowed people to breach into our side and start fights. They allowed that.
They still called us Antifa. Remember? Antifa's moving in. Antifa's here. You know, or in Calgary, Antifa took over. They wouldn't even, they were policing the physical location that we could be on. And yeah, no, it was just wild.
And then
I remember
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, no, you go on.
Okay, so in Edmonton, they literally blocked one of the exits, the police. And when I asked, I was like, if something goes down and people need to go that way, can they? Well, if you're scared, go home. That's not what I'm fucking asking. Right? I didn't say I was afraid something was going to happen. I said, if something goes down, will people be allowed to leave through this area you are not allowing us to leave through? If you're scared, go home. Buddy, if you're scared, go home. Shut the fuck up. Like, what the fuck?
We should really
remember the BPS contact that we had?
Yes.
Messaged us and said, Antifa's here.
Antifa's here. The amount of cops that had the thin blue line patches or pins on while they're standing there facing us protecting the Torch March people. You know, like, they don't give a fuck. They are a part of that whole thing.
I remember walking up to them and saying, hey, there's a lady over here that came from the other side and like she's threatening and fighting with people, and I couldn't even get words in. He just started yelling, get back, like I was the threat. I'm like, okay, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, they're like robots.
They are. Sad.
I'm going to play this clip from Edmonton.
Presence at the Alberta legislature Saturday afternoon for what was promoted to be an anti-lockdown, anti-mask protest. Led to this. Anti-restriction protesters say it's not about race. As the sun began to set, Walk for Freedom protesters lit torches. What do they represent?
I'm not sure.
The torch represents the battle when we fight for truth and justice.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but as a believer in Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach, the Messiah that came into the world to save mankind from sin, the light of the fire represents the light of Christ.
What you just saw was the arrest of one of the main organizers of the Walk for Freedom protest after a confrontation with police. This poster was released on social media showing a picture of marchers holding torches. Tiki torches, a large wooden cross, and flags with different quotes were used by the Walk for Freedom supporters, while the Black Lives Matter groups carried signs accusing the other of white supremacy. The Walk for Freedom group claims they stand up for citizens' rights and freedoms through peaceful protests.
On Saturday, symbols that evoke racist beliefs were on full display. David Owasik reports.
This criminologist isn't completely surprised, saying the protests have become a front for some with extreme beliefs.
This is becoming a pattern of citizens hiding under the guise of anti-mask campaign, taking to the streets, bringing out symbols of hatred, such as tiki torches.
The mayor, while citing that many who took part in the rally may not have been from our city, said he was appalled to see the burning torches.
Premier Jason Kenney says the event was attended by members of known extremist groups. And Rafi Boudjikanian reports this morning on the fallout.
Symbols linked prominently to white supremacy, historically and as recently as 2017 during a white power rally in Charlottesville, Virginia, where one counter-protester was killed. Police union says 4 members were punched and swarmed at the demonstration, but the force says the event unfolded largely peacefully and respectfully.
Tiera, what was your thoughts, experience, reflection, anything that you want to share about the Edmonton porch rally?
Well, EPS was a big disappointment. Not that they weren't already before, but like for people who were actively, like, I've spoken to the chief, I was working within them, trying to make them more aware to how they could be less racist and more helpful to the racialized community. And like, just for people, they were like trying to act like they were cool with us and, oh, we'll help you out. They just used you for information. That's all APS did. Fuck EPS. Anyways, no, they show up and we're the problem, of course, because we're the aggressors in their eyes. Meanwhile, they had to arrest people on their side for being aggressive, and they were called Nazis by their own people. But they set their barricade up and their fucking bikes facing our side and blocked all our exits. So we were surrounded by not only the police, but also the anti-maskers and the white supremacists.
Like, and even at the Calgary one too, when they wouldn't let us go where we wanted to go. Like, they kept trying to stop us from going and like stop our movement, when we also have the right to peacefully protest. So why are you trying to bar us? So that was just like, that was super interesting.
You couldn't leave to even go to the bathroom without the police asking where you were going, like that's any of their fucking business. And no, it was intimidating to see. And then on top of that, seeing people that like you consider family standing on the other side was like a slap in the face. Are you kidding me? Why are you even on that side? Your child is Black. Like, I will never get over that. But no, it was crazy. And not only did they block our exits, but they allowed angry protesters and anti-maskers come from their side to our side and start fighting with our people and getting in their face. And when you go up to the cops to be like, hey, like, what are you going to do about this? Because if we do something, we're going to get arrested or something's going to happen to one of us. Mm-hmm. The police start screaming at you in the face and are like, back the fuck up, back up. And it's like, you couldn't even talk to the police. There was no way to talk to anybody. No protection.
The atmosphere of that was just, it was like electric walking in. Like when we walked in and then we saw like everybody on that side already there. And then witnessing again the cops like facing us, and they did the same thing at the Calgary one too, where they faced us like they're protecting the other side from us. I found that like super interesting, and the fact that they tried to block off a whole exit, like that was really, really weird.
But don't forget to mention the cops actually messaged the wrong group saying Antifa's here now.
We were in contact with them, letting them know, like, hey, we're not trying to cause any issues. This is what we're going to be doing. And yeah, they messaged back saying Antifa's here. And I think that message was not supposed to go to us.
It was not.
Clearly, like, she did not mean to send that to Tiera. And that was like hilarious. And that was like, I know that the cops already call us Antifa, but to just like see it and then again to hear it at the Calgary protest too, when we took over their spot and they're like, Antifa moved in. It was just like solidified that yet again, like, the cops are protecting white supremacists.
But the thing that's fucked up is I guarantee you the police were not sitting there talking to other people like PK and all those other people that were there, like, what is your plans? What are you going to do? But we had to sit there and talk to EPS or else they weren't going to let it happen at all. They would have shut that shit down so quick. And yeah, no, it was an intense day to see everything that transpired and just how
wild day.
Blatant the fucking
wild
are with their racism. They didn't even, I'm sure you have clips to show of how they were standing, like
Yes.
disgusting robots, just angry, and like one person makes the wrong move, they're gonna fuck us up. Like it was crazy to see that. But
If anyone wants a fun conspiracy theory, is EPS paid by Patrick King? Prove that it's not.
Prove us wrong.
I got a friend of a friend who saw the checks, so prove me wrong.
Yeah. You know, I have pictures of it. I'm just not going to release it yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. No, it's when the time is right. Yeah.
I'm going to show a picture of the poster here. I think it said it kind of in the news clip, but it didn't fully say it. This is a picture from Charlottesville. They took it and they put it, like they took it from fucking Charlottesville, and then they put it on this poster. Okay. So,
but it's not racist.
No, not at all.
No.
Actually, I have this news clip and this news clip and this news clip. I'm gonna put things on the screen right now. Of the Edmonton police being like, we can't figure out if this is racist. This is probably not racist, which is really weird because the Calgary police were like, there's people from known hate groups here. We have records on these people. We'll get to that.
Yo, but they also still let it fucking happen.
Mm-hmm.
But they've always let it happen.
Sons of Odin standing
They
right
go
behind
hand in hand.
Oh, look at us in our lame ass jackets.
Yeah.
The whole time.
I literally, when I made the mistake of going up and speaking there, I literally had to walk through soldiers of Odin threatening me as I went up to the fucking microphone. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
Okay. That was another crazy day.
So
that was also a crazy day.
The Edmonton rally, but then Calgary had 2 rallies, and actually Barrhead had a rally.
Barrhead.
Yeah, I will show. So wait, Tiera, I know you have to go soon. Do you have anything that you want to add as like a
No, it was just fucked up to see them, and then with their torch when they lit the torches and started marching, it was like, this is happening. Fuck.
That lit a fire in my soul. I was so fucking pissed. Like, I went from cold and defeated to like, I am going to scream at the top of my lungs until I lose my voice.
Well, if you remember, we didn't even plan to be loud or say a word. It was
That's right.
Silent. But it just got to the point where it was like, fuck that, let's use our voices.
I remember it, like me saying, like, I'm like, can we chat? Like, I really want to chat. Like, being silent, like, no. And then when I was leaving, somebody was trying to give me shit about it. They're like, if it was just silent, it would have been more impactful. I'm like, shut the fuck up.
No, it needed to happen. The silence thing wouldn't work. And
the
way that they were yelling out all of our names and like, and I'm pretty sure Terry and a bunch of his friends had to walk me and my mom to our cars.
Yep.
Leslie was following us.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. Afterwards.
Well, and like right from the very start, like we were all standing at the back of like the crowd of our side or whatever, and the cops just kept letting them come through and come through. And they were being like they weren't being violent at that point, but they were saying shit. They were yelling at us like derogatory bullshit constantly, and like racial
and they would like
bullshit.
come at, they would walk towards you instead of going around. They would try to walk through the middle.
Yeah, especially the older dudes, like the 50+ crowd. They were, but so we tried blocking it. When we tried blocking it, not letting them come through, and that's when the cops were like got all pissed off about us blocking it. And so finally they turned everybody around after like, I don't know, it was probably like half an hour of just bullshit. And then all of a sudden some lady shows up in an electric wheelchair, and the cops are like, hey, like, what are you here for? And she's like, oh, like, she explains it. She's on the other side, whatever. And all of us move out of the way to let her go through because she's literally like 80 or older in an electric scooter kind of thing. And the cops fucking are like, nope, fucking turn around, blah, blah, blah. And it was just like, it was such a like mental gymnastics with the cops at that point that like afterwards I couldn't even talk like I couldn't say anything to a cop without actually like freaking the fuck out.
Yes.
I flipped out at a cop too, and he flipped out at me, and I was like, hey, I need to walk away because he's gonna fuck me up. So I backed.
I got into one with one. I'm sorry.
They deserve it too.
Yeah, but I didn't need to, you know. I knew.
I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry for yelling at cops. I'm not.
Yeah, that's the other thing too. Like, I'm not sorry to the cop. I'm sorry to y'all.
Yeah, I'm sorry for me, but fuck, I was mad.
Yeah, no, I have it on video, and I'm like, I shouldn't post this. The emotions were really high that day, just from the second we got there till the second we left. It was just, I was exhausted by the time I got home.
Oh, and then we tried to leave.
Yeah.
And we accidentally, like, they went to march, and we went to leave because it had been like, what, 8 hours? And then to walk, we were accidentally walking towards them. And the cops, instead of using their words, because police don't know how to use their words, they just hit people and try and assume that you know what they're trying to say. They made like a blockade, and they were just being so aggressive. And it's like, dude, we don't want to go face to face with these people. It's fucking cold. I'm freezing. I want to go home. I want to eat. And
not get stabbed.
They were just like, what the fuck are you? No, I'm trying to go home.
Save the face-to-face for next week in Calgary.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is where we cut the interview. The interview itself will continue next episode. We are going to include one more video on Alberta's reaction to seatbelts in 1987, just to show you that it is it's the exact same reaction as to masks, unfortunately. Not that masks or even vaccines are necessarily the issue when it comes to white supremacy, but it is a kind of funny way to end this show. So since it's been so serious, here you go.
But I don't believe that anybody should tell me what the hell I have to do, pardon my grammar anyway. That's dictating. We've got enough of that as it is. I don't need some sucker to tell me how to drive.
With only a week to go before the law takes effect, it's obvious a lot of people are still fighting seatbelts. Joe Miller, the man who doesn't like being told what to do, says he's going to ask his doctor for a medical certificate so he won't have to wear one. But some drivers don't have to be convinced. Joe Buxton, who got into the seatbelt habit in British Columbia, challenges anybody to prove to him that they don't work.
I would like to meet some people who are opposed to it and hear some logical explanations why, because there isn't any.
Alberta's transportation minister used to be against wearing a seatbelt, but he reconsidered after some people were killed on the highway he drives from Edmonton to Peace River.
And when I sat down with my wife at that time and talked about it, we decided the odds were mounting up and I should start to wear it. So.
Adair's department has a TV commercial promoting the use of belts.
Your driver put on seat belts today.
Sure did.
But the government chose the soft sell approach. Only 28% of Alberta drivers are buckling up now. If you're one of the 72% who aren't, you'll need a good reason after July 1st. You don't need a seatbelt if you're driving in reverse, if no belts were installed at the factory, if you're driving a taxi with a passenger on board. And you don't need to wear one if your doctor gives you a medical certificate saying you have health problems. The belt would irritate. Scott Hadley, who drives a transport truck 12 to 14 hours a day, says he has an irritation. It's the new law.
Well, I'm a professional driver on the side, and I don't think we have to. Anyway, I think the law sucks. I think it's a stupid law.
Hadley and other motorists will soon see these new orange signs beside the streets and highways they drive. If they don't buckle up, the fine's $25.
We don't even have seat belts, Bill.
Bill Lang, CBC News, Edmonton.